We're talking about crowns today. Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about crowns. We're going to be talking about what goes into the decision to either have a crown done versus having a filling done. We're also going to talk about kind of what it looks like on an x-ray and also what it looks like while we're working on your tooth when we're doing a crown. There are many different types of crowns. Crowns come in different materials. They can be all porcelain or all ceramic. They can be porcelain fused to a metal, or they can be all metal, such as gold. When used correctly, crowns are a great way to strengthen your tooth. They can increase the lifespan of your tooth greatly. One common misconception is that if you have a crown, you will also need to have a root canal done. That is not always the case, although whenever you have a crown done, you should always be aware of the possible complications that may arise down the road. Crowns can typically be made in 1 to 2 appointments. There are some offices which are set up to do something called same-day crowns. That is when they prepare or shape your tooth for a crown, they'll scan it, and they'll make the crown in the office at the exact same time. There's also another way to have a crown made. That is when the dentist will prepare your tooth for the crown, they will take an impression, and then send that impression to a lab. The lab will then make a crown that resembles a healthy tooth, which will fit over your tooth. In the meantime, between those 2 appointments, you will wear something called a temporary crown. So, let's get into it. I'll be showing you a series of pictures and x-rays and walking you through the process of getting a crown. Okay, so this is the first set of x-rays we're going to be looking at. This is called a periapical x-ray, and basically this type of x-ray shows us your whole tooth. So we can see the root of your tooth here, and we can also see the crown of your tooth, or the part of your tooth that sticks up from above the gum. This white area right here, this is a very large silver filling. Some people call those silver fillings amalgams. This type of x-ray is called a bite wing. And basically this part only shows you the part of your tooth that's sticking up from above the gum line, basically. It also helps us to look at the bone levels around the tooth, but we can talk about that more in a later video. So these x-rays are really good at seeing exactly where cavities are in relation to an old filling or in relation to the bone level or the bone that supports this tooth. When we look at this x-ray here, you can see these white areas right here, and that's what the old amalgam and the silver fillings look like. But also, you can also see that there are these dark areas underneath of this white filling. A little difficult to see on this screen, but the x-rays, if you're looking at it in first person, there's a very dark area underneath of the silver filling. Similarly, on this tooth here, you can see a dark area underneath of this filling as well. On this tooth here, you can see a little bit better the contrast. So when you look at this area of the tooth, it's gray, and then when you look at this area of the tooth, you can see that it's a little bit darker. And that's what a cavity looks like on an x-ray. What we see is that these have a very large silver filling on them. This is the very back tooth. This is called a molar. It's one of the teeth that you use to chew with. And then on the side of the tooth right here, you can see that there's a cavity. This cavity, although it may look small right here, it actually goes underneath of this old silver filling. The decision becomes, do we remove this very large old silver filling and also the cavity, and then place a new filling in that tooth? When you do that, a lot of the times you'd actually make the tooth a little bit weaker. So the decision was made that we would remove as much of the old silver filling that we have to get rid of the cavity, and then we would remove the cavity as well, and then shape the tooth for a crown and put a new crown on it. And you can see that there's a silver filling on this tooth as well, and this area right here is where the silver filling has basically broken down next to the part of the tooth that's supporting the filling. And underneath there's a very large cavity as well. In this picture here, you can see that this area right here is actually where there was a silver filling. It was most likely the continuation of this silver filling right here. And now there's a cavity right here, as well as underneath of this old silver filling. But this is what it looks like after we've removed a good amount of that cavity. Also on this tooth here, you can see we removed all of the old silver filling and the majority of the cavity. This tooth right here still looks dark. We still have to remove a little bit of that cavity that's in there. This white area right here, this is actually something that's called a base or a liner, and this is put on a tooth or in a tooth to protect the nerve of the tooth. And that shows me that the previous filling that was on this tooth, or even a step further, the previous cavity that was on this tooth was very, very big and very close to the nerve of the tooth. So the previous this previous picture that we showed you guys, that white area was right here. That's where the base was. And after removing that, you can see that it's a kind of has a brownish color right here. And this tooth right here, which had that very dark brownish color, is no longer there, okay? A way to check to make sure that all the cavity is removed is you can visually inspect it, but what I like to do is I'll scratch this surface here and I'll scratch this surface here, and I'm feeling for a certain type of feel on my instrument, but also I like to listen for a certain type of sound. There are also dyes that you can put in this tooth to kind of confirm that you've removed all the decay and all the cavity. I personally don't use those dyes because I like to do the sound test and the scratch test. After removing all of the old silver filling and the cavity that was underneath of that filling, what we need to do now is build that tooth back up, okay? So once you remove the cavity and old silver filling, that tooth is going to be a little bit weaker at this point, okay? Imagine it like an apple. If you remove the core from an apple, you know, that apple is a little bit weaker at that point. So we need to put the core back in the apple. And that's basically what we're doing here, okay? We're putting a build-up material to strengthen that tooth so that we can shape it into a shape that will allow us to put a crown on top of it after. There are different types of build-up materials. I use a build-up material called Supercure contrast, meaning that it's blue. I like to have a contrast build-up material because I like to visually be able to see when I have reached back onto good solid tooth structure. A lot of the times, if you use a tooth-colored build-up material like a composite, it's still going to strengthen the tooth, but when we start to get along the side of the tooth here, it just takes a little more thought and inspection to be able to figure out if you're all the way back onto solid tooth structure. This is just less thinking for me. I just look at it. If it's blue still, I know that I have to remove a little bit more so that I'm on good solid tooth structure. This is a picture of what these teeth look like after the buildup material has been put in the teeth, and also after the tooth has been shaped for the crown. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and share, and also let us know if these videos are helpful.